Hey guys, Bartel's Bookshelf here. Sorry, I know it's been a while, but as I said in my last video, I've been in a little bit of a slump. The slump fairy decided to hit me, so I've been reading slowly and not as much as I would like to. Been focused a little bit more on, movies and TV lately, which is unusual for me. I sort of fell off in the last 10 or so years from that sort of thing, but for some reason, I don't know, the interests in mediums have switched, at least temporarily. But I finally finished something, and I'm here to talk about it, that being the novelization of the film Wishmaster by Christian Francis. So I only found out about this in the last month or so. I think Aaron found it or sent it to me, or we both found it, I can't remember. But this is from a publisher called Encyclopocalypse Publications. And in the last 2 or 3 years, they've been putting out, they're a small press, primarily, horror and things like that. But in the last 2 or 3 years, they've been putting out novelizations of cult 80s and 90s horror films, which, sort of doing, adapting things into novels that were never properly given novelizations when they originally came out, which sounded really intriguing. I'd never actually seen this movie. I was behind on the whole Wishmaster train, but in preparation for reading this, I decided to watch the movie, and I really enjoyed it. It's not a masterpiece or anything, but it's a fun little cult classic. So basically, the story is about a djinn who is, evil, and instead of, your typical friendly Robin Williams genie, he grants people's wishes in a monkey's paw kind of way. Sort of granting their wishes, but in a very twisted sort of way, using a lot of irony and puns and things like that. The movie's pretty entertaining. It was directed by Robert Kurtzman, who's 1/3 of the K&B Effects group, who are very influential, have worked on the Evil Dead films and things like that. So it's really just an excuse for a bunch of crazy special effects set pieces, but they're very well done and very entertaining. And the actor who plays the djinn, Andrew Divoff, he's actually really, really fun. He's very much of a Freddy Krueger type character, very like slimy and lots of puns and like jokes at the expense of the characters that he's sort of like meting out his vengeance on, and he's got this great, deep gravelly voice. He sounds a little bit like Palpatine, and he's always got this like shit-eating grin on his face, as if like he knows something you don't know, and it never like leaves his face out the entire movie. He was great. In fact, we actually watched the second movie as well after this because we enjoyed it. We enjoyed him so much, and unfortunately, he didn't come back for any of the other sequels. So yeah, it's a fun movie. Great, not great, but entertaining if you like that sort of thing. And what intrigued me about the book, because I read the prologue, and then based on that, I decided to watch the movie first. And the prologue is crazy. There's like all kinds of stuff going on, like crazy, like imaginative, hell going on as the djinn unleashes, hell on this party in ancient Persia. And I spoke to Aaron about it because he'd seen the movie. He was the one who turned me on to this. And I was like, is the movie like that? And he was like, oh yeah, there's all that kind of stuff in the movie. So I decided to watch the movie first and then finish the book. And it was really interesting, the differences between the movie and the book. I won't dwell too much on that because I want to focus mostly on the book. But the first thing I noticed while reading the book, and one of the things that I actually thought it improved on in a lot of ways in regards to the movie, was that because it's a novel, it's not bound by the pretty low budget of the movie, and it can do things that the movie could never in a million years dream of doing. So there's a lot more emphasis on the insane, imaginative set pieces in here, and they're just bizarre and gory, and you can tell the author, Christian Francis, is really relishing in writing these scenes and just coming up with whatever crazy shit his imagination says to him and just putting it on the page. And it reminded me a lot of James Herbert, mostly in the fact that it expands on the movie it not only expands on the movie by going crazier with, all of the crazy set pieces and things, but it expands on the characters too in a lot of ways, mostly through little character vignettes. So in the film, you've got all these different, disparate characters who the djinn, convinces to make wishes that are then, twisted and everything. And in the book, they expand on these characters a little bit more. They're almost like little colorful character vignettes where you get a little bit of expansion on sort of who they are and sort of quick little sketches of their backstory and their personality before the djinn kind of destroys them. And that reminded me a lot of James Herbert, especially early James Herbert, like The Rats and the Fog, because he kind of was in that stock and trade. He did that a lot where he would he would put a lot of effort into sort of these brief character sketches before just completely decimating them, you know, making you care about the characters just enough to the point where when their lives got absolutely destroyed, like you were completely crushed. And on top of that, it also shares with James Herbert an affinity for very graphic violence, which is in keeping with the movie. The movie has a lot of, you know, gore and stuff. But the book, like, takes it even further. As I said, you can tell the author is really relishing in sort of these very grisly details. For example, one of the things that's in the book that's not in the film is a character gets strung up by his own living intestines, and it describes the intestines still working, you know, pumping, you know, digested food through his body as it's, like, strangling him, and, you know, things like that, where you can really tell, like, the author was really enjoying himself, like, letting go like that. And it, as well as with James Herbert, it has a very over the top, some people might say purple or overheated prose, but I think that's the perfect pitch to put this material at. I mean, the movie itself is very crazy and over the top, and that's matched and even surpassed in the book in a lot of ways. One of the other things that I thought was interesting about the book in comparison to the movie is that obviously, you know, the book expands things and adds some things, but it also changes a few things as well. Like, a lot of the dialogue is similar but different, or, you know, like kind of expanded on from what was in the film. And certain details are different. Like, for example, there's a professor that the main character, Alex, goes to visit to, like, learn more about the djinn. And in the book, she's British, but in the film, she's American. Or at the very least, she's played by an American actress. I don't know if the character was meant to be British. And as well, Alex's friend Josh, who in the beginning of the novel and the movie gets killed, is one of the djinn's, like, first victims. In the book, he's more described as, like, a stereotypical, like, pudgy nerd type, you know. But in the movie, what little we get of him, he looks like a jock. It's like a totally different type of person than what's described in the book. And that made me wonder, like, was all of this just stuff that was invented by the author just to make the story more interesting? Was this from an earlier draft of a screenplay? Was the author in contact with Peter Atkins and discussed maybe some things that he wanted to put in that were taken out or that he didn't have time to do or something like that? Just little things like that I thought were interesting and made me wonder sort of about the provenance of, you know, where all this stuff came from. But it also made for a more interesting read as well. Because obviously, you know, regular novelizations are written before the movie even comes out, or at least are based on, you know, an earlier cut or something. So I found it interesting, like, why would you change all of these details if this is years after the movie's come out and you have it right in front of you, so you can, if you want to, you can basically do like a one-to-one adaptation. But he didn't do that, and I thought that was interesting, and I wonder why that is. But it made it more of an interesting read because it wasn't just a retread of the movie, you know? So I didn't mind it at all. And the other thing that I was thinking about as I was reading the book, and this is something that's in the movie, but it's, again, sort of expanded on in the book, is it reminds me a lot of Candyman, because you have this folkloric monster who's all about, you know, sort of granting wishes and sort of very mythical, you know. And it has a focus on class that wasn't something I totally picked up on in the movie, but is very much sort of emphasized in the book, where a lot of the characters in the book are from different social strata. You know, one of the characters who is granted a wish is, you know, a homeless man, and then you have one of the sort of semi-antagonist of the film, Anthony Beaumont, who in the film is played by Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger, and you know, and he's sort of a very snooty, rich art collector guy. You know, you have the dock worker who breaks the statue that leads to the unleashing of the djinn and all that stuff, and there's a lot of stuff about his sort of struggles with, you know, being sort of a blue collar drunk and stuff like that. There's a lot of those sort of contrast between, high and low class and things like that I thought was really interesting. And another sort of Clive Barker connection is that in the book, there's these little vignettes where the djinn is talking directly to the reader as if he's in the book himself, addressing you as you read, which reminded me a lot of Clive Barker's Mr. Begone. And these connections all make sense because the screenwriter of the film was Peter Atkins, who wrote the screenplays for Hellraiser 2, 3, and 4. So there's a lot of similarities there, with that sort of urban decay and, and weaving folklore into horror and graphic violence. It feels very Barkerian, as I said, mixed with a lot of James Herbert. So it made it very interesting, and because of the things that the book expanded on, because of the things that the book did, being a lot more imaginative, pushing itself into places that the movie couldn't go, and expanding on the characters a little bit. I actually thought the book was a lot better than the movie in a lot of ways, and I was surprised how much I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. Again, like the movie, I wouldn't necessarily call it a masterpiece or anything, and the book itself is filled with a lot of, editorial errors. There's a lot of grammatical and, typos and things like that. But that's kind of par for the course for these kinds of things. Really, what I came away with at the end of the day was just being really having a lot of fun with it and being really excited to explore more of this publisher's work. I know they have novelizations of things like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes and Reanimator and Forbidden Zone, which I'm really curious about. How the hell do you turn Forbidden Zone into a novel? So yeah, more than anything, I just think this was a really good time, and it makes me really excited to see what else Encyclopocalypse puts out, and how they adapt all of these various movies. And it really, I think it's a great idea, and it really leaves a lot of room for expanding on and in a lot of ways improving these sort of cult classic horror films. So I'm definitely going to check out more of their publications. I think I might check out the Forbidden Zone novelization next. We'll see. But if you're a fan of Wishmaster, and even if you're not really, if you just really enjoy very fun, fast-paced, imaginative, gory horror novels, I think this is worth your time. I would recommend checking it out. I've never heard of the author Christian Francis before, but I enjoyed this book enough that I'd be interested in checking out more of his stuff. And as I said, definitely checking out more of Encyclopocalypse's stuff as well. So yeah, I just wanted to get this quick little review out and sort of shine a little light on a publisher that I don't think a lot of people know about. And like I said, I just learned about it. So yeah, if you're interested in this kind of thing, look up Encyclopocalypse. Check out their other books. I'll link them in the description. They've got a novelization of Chopping Mall coming out soon, so that should be very interesting. So yeah, if you're a fan of cult 80s and 90s horror, check this out. Check them out. And until then, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.